And 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
The Sobriety Capital of the World Group has always welcomed speakers, and tonight we are fortunate to have Ginny P. from Palm Springs share with us.
I need help, so bring that up close. Thank you. Hi, my name's Ginny. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, everybody. I'm here because I don't want to drink again. I want a better life. And thank you for helping me up here. I called Ginny a few hours before the meeting saying, I don't think I can stand up in front for 45 minutes. And she said, I'll bring you a stool. So she went home and put this chair in her truck and brought it over here. So I guess we're willing to go to any lengths. Right. And I really wanted to come because I love coming over here. It's just fun. I love the fun that you have here when you make announcements and when you talk. Because, if it weren't fun being sober, why bother? So I love coming here because it reminds me that sobriety really is fun. And it's good to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a while. My sober bikers and, yeah. Some of us go way back. We took that H&I meeting up there, right? And if you stay sober a long time, or even if you stay sober just a short time, for now, you'll start building relationships with people that you will cherish for the rest of your life. My sobriety date is July 13th, 1974, so I'm 43 years sober, and I'll be 76 years old next week. I've been a realtor for, yeah, I'm old, honey. You saw me. I got up and about fell over. I'm 37 years in the business of selling real estate, and let's see, I've been a lesbian since the early 50s, so, right. So you can leave now if you want, right. I come from the Midwest. I got sober in Indiana, and I grew up in Indiana. I'm a hick from Indiana, and I grew up in a town of 6,000 white people. It was called Kendallville, Indiana. It was 24 miles north of Fort Wayne on Highway 3. And they had a big water tower that said, "The world takes what Kendallville makes." And it took me. So I'm like, my dad was the town drunk, and my mother was a realtor. And she was also chairman of the Republican Party for Noble County. So I took after my father, who he was an alcoholic and a womanizer. So yeah, I got his genes. Right? I don't remember my first drink, and I don't remember my last, honestly. But I know I've had it. Because people said, if you don't remember your last drink, you haven't had it. No, I've had my last drink. I intend to never, ever drink again. And I came here for the long haul. And we do it one day at a time here, but it gets a lot easier after you get a few days put together. It just gets easier. You know what to do. You don't have to call your sponsor 15 times a day. I mean, what AA really is about for me is doing the right thing. So when you get your sponsor, and get a sponsor, like if you've got 30 days under your belt, look for someone you want that you like when they talk, you like how they move, and ask them to help you go through the steps. Because when you go through the steps and you work them, your life will change, and you'll learn to do the right thing. I never did the right thing, so I drank a lot to cover it up. I didn't, yeah, I just didn't. I stole things, I took people's husbands, I took their wives. I mean, it didn't matter. I was very selfish and self-centered and self-serving. And I think my father grew up in a bar called Burger's Bar, and he drank Drury's by the case. Probably nobody even remembers that beer unless you're really old, like me. But that's what he drank, and there was always beer around the house. So when I was a senior in high school, a bunch of guys on the football team and a bunch of us girls, we all got drunk. We went to Ohio for 3-2 beer, and I drew the short match. And so they suspended me upside down, holding me up on a bridge viaduct with a can of white paint, and I sprayed KHS, class of 60. And we thought it was really fabulous because we had marked the bridge. And what it did was it set off a whole wave of vandalism by the other classes. They tried to outdo us. They sprayed, you know, their class on a barn. And anyway, so it was bad. So the guys were bragging about it in the locker room. The coach overheard them. We were all called in. Our parents were called in. We were bad. And we sat around in a circle, and they took away my driver's license, said you cannot drive the rest of the year. I was a cheerleader, and they took away my pom-poms, and they said you cannot go out on the floor anymore. So that really upset me. And so I just took to smoking cigarettes and drinking for the rest of the year. And I graduated in 1960, and I said to my mother, I'm going to leave this hick town, and I ain't ever coming back. And I basically said to all of them, you'll never take me alive. And off I went to Indiana University in 1960. And I was still there in 1974 when I got sober. Yeah, and so before I left, my family doctor said, Virginia, I'm going to give you a prescription for something that will help you study. You can't get anything at the drugstore other than No-Dose, I think it was called. So I'm giving you a script for something called ephedrine. So, right, you know what it is. So I said, thank you, Dr. Messer, and I took it away to college, and I joined a sorority. I became a tri-delt, delta, delta, delta. And my sorority sister, I had a sorority sister who worked in a pharmacy in Downers Grove, Illinois. So she said to me, if you can steal the prescription pad, go over to the doctor, the campus doctor. Get that prescription pad when they stick you in that little room for 20 minutes before anybody comes in. Steal the pad, bring it to me. I can write them, we can sell them, and we can take them. So Karen and I had a little racket out of the second floor of the Tridelt house, and we were writing scripts for Benzedrine and Dexedrine and all kinds of dreams, and we were selling them out of the second floor. We just throw them to the guys down below. I'm trying to think. Karen and I, we dated these two guys who were Phi Delts, I think, and we would go out into the fields, cornfields. This is farmland, and we would stack up bottles of beer, and then we would shoot them. The boys had a gun. Now, this is like early 60s. This is long before Columbine, or even like, nobody really thought to shoot their teachers or shoot people like they did. We were stupid. We were hicks in Indiana. We shot beer bottles, empty ones. So Karen brought the gun back to the Tridelt house. And then we proceeded to get drunk. I mean, I had a cooler in my room, and we were drinking Cutty Sark and Beefeaters and anything we could get our hands on. Karen got really drunk, and the seniors said they were not going to let her run for office. Well, she got very upset, and she started going up and down the halls drunk, brandishing that gun. And so everybody was like, ooh, people got upset. So the alums were called to come over, and they said, Virginia, you're on the board of standards here, and you're Karen's roommate. We would like the gun. get us the gun. And I said, well, if I give you the gun, you have to promise you won't lift her pin and make her leave the house. And they said, okay, we won't lift her pin or make her leave the house. So I went, I knew where Karen hid the gun, and I got it, and I gave it to them, and they turned to Karen and said, you have 24 hours to get out of the house. You are no longer a tri-delt. So that really made me mad. I said, you lied to me. They didn't care. So I said to some of my friends, I said, let's get out of the house and rent our own place. So I left the Tridelt house, and I took about 11 girls with me, and we rented our own house off campus. And to me, it was just fine. I was a Slavic language and literature. That was my major. Mind you, when I went to school there, I think I was going to be a dental hygienist or something normal. But I got into Slavic languages, studying Russian, I think because I liked the literature. It was always, somebody was always getting killed, and it was unrequited love, and Anna Karenina couldn't have the man she wanted, so she threw herself in front of a train, and I loved all that. So I was a Russian major, and I got this job at a place called Nick's English Hut in Bloomington, Indiana. It's still there, a bar, a campus bar, and I would go in and wait tables. And these guys came in there every day on motorcycles, big bikes, big BMWs, all kinds of bikes. And they all sat around up front in a round table. And I started hanging out with them. They all had beards and, very cool, bad boys, bikers. And I hung out with them, and I got a motorcycle too, but it was a little one. But I wanted to hang out with them because they were really the cool people. And they had gotten a hold of lysergic acid diethylamine, or LSD, and we thought that was tasty. So actually we were shooting it. So yeah, it was serious. So I have a lot of drugs in my story, but I'm really, my main drug of choice is alcohol. And it's certainly by far the easiest to get. But, I have to talk about drugs. They're part of my story because, I'm a speed freak junkie and an alcoholic. And I love the speed because I could stay up all night. I loved it. I could get 2 hours sleep, throw in some pills, and wake up and suck my mouth and go off to class. And I liked it. And then I could take a few drinks after class and take the edge off, and it was all cool again. And so, mind you, I tried every drug that I'm a product of the 60s, so if you remember the 60s, you weren't there. So it's like, we did it all. It was wild. And there weren't any sexually transmitted diseases of note. There was no AIDS yet. There was no HIV. There was your basic, gonorrhea and a case of syphilis here and there, but there was nothing bad like you were going to die. So I got into trouble, at the university, whatever. Anyway, I was riding my motorcycle one night, and this woman in a really big bike cut me off, and I had to stop. And she got off her motorcycle and came walking back towards me, and she said, I thought I was the only woman in this town that rode a motorcycle. And I said, well, obviously you're not. And I fell in love with her, and that was like 1963. And this is long before Ellen had a show or people voted for gay marriage. There was none of that, and it was still the love that dare not speak its name. So Barbara was a junkie, and she taught me how to shoot dope. And so we decided that when I graduated in 1964, we would go off to Paris and we would live like Gertrude and Alice, who were two old famous lesbians that lived in Paris. Alice B. Toklas and Gertrude Stein. You're all too young for that. So I graduated with that degree in Russian, and off we went. I told my parents, my grandmother gave me a bunch of money for graduating from college, and I told my parents I was going to go to the Sorbonne, to this university in Paris, to study, and they all thought that was really quite fabulous. So Barbara and I got over there, and she decided once we got to Paris, she really didn't want to be a lesbian. So I thought, oh. It was very upsetting to me. So we had this big fight back in London, in the Heathrow airport. She punched me out and she flew home. Well, I had all this money that my grandmother had given me, so I called Maynard, my motorcycle mechanic, and I flew him over. And Maynard and I went up to Liverpool, and I bought him, instead of going to college or university over there, I bought him a big 500cc single thumper Velocette with a big black fairing, and we had barber coats, and we hung out at the whatever it was, the Busy Bee Cafe, and it was fun. We hung out with all the bikers, and so then Maynard and I went down to Spain. We rode our bikes to Spain. I rented a villa. We took in all these gypsies. We were like the hippy-dippy people. And, he went back. He flew the motorcycle back to Houston. And then I came back a few months later. And when I came back, Barbara, the woman that I'd fallen in love with, who had left me in Europe, had married a man named Junior Peacock. And so when I came home a year later, she divorced him, so I married him. Go ahead. Yeah. Well, we have this saying in AA that we don't get the well ones here. So, right. So I got Junior, and we moved down to southern Indiana near French Lick. It was a place called West Baden. I bought 17 acres, and it was a little house. It didn't have any running water, but Junior said he'd get to it. He never did. So we had this little house with no running water, and we're living there, and I get a job teaching school in Salem, Indiana, which was a town run by the John Birch Society. So I taught junior high school English, and I drove to school. This is like 1968. I had already married Junior, unfortunately, but I drove to school, and I kept a bottle of vodka under my seat because I know you can't smell it, so that nobody would be able to smell it when I got to school. But apparently, Mr. Hunt, the principal, Junior now, our marriage isn't going well because I'm leaving, like to go out for groceries. Like I said, Junior, I'm going out for groceries on Friday night and come back on Tuesday. I was having an affair, in Bloomington, not too far away, with some professor's wife. I mean, it was the 60s. It was just crazy then. When I married Junior, my matron of honor was my lover, and I'd slept with her and her husband. It was like a threesome. We were just like, it was crazy then, and drugs and alcohol were all part of everything. You had to have come, if you didn't live in the 60s, you're missing it, right? Anyway, so Junior started beating me up in like 1968 to 1974. Until I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I never drew a sober breath. So I drank every day. I drank on the way to school. I drank at school. I always carried a large purse. I drank after school. I went to the drugstore. I signed up for Robitussin. I did anything that I had to do to get a drink. And on our 17 acres, Junior and I decided to grow marijuana. And this is 1968. So the science class next to my English class, I asked Mr. Stevenson, the teacher, if he would test our soil. We wanted to grow some crops. And so they tested the soil and they said it was really good, so we grew all this marijuana. So after school and the buses had left outside on the parking lot, all my friends, the hippie beatniks from, Bloomington, would come down and I would sell them a bushel basket of marijuana. It wasn't like a little bag, it was a big bushel basket, right. So that's how I was making my living. Well, Junior was beating me up a lot. I became a battered wife, and he would knock on me. One time I kicked him back, and he kicked me so hard, I didn't walk for a week. So it got to where he started beating on me, so I would just pick up whatever was around that was heavy, and I would just throw it through the window. And it was, the fish were frozen and that, so I'd pick that up and threw it. And so we had all these windows were all broken, and we had 12 chickens and a rooster, Donald. So I had 12 hens and Donald. Well, since there was no glass in the windows, the chickens came into the house and lived with us. And we were so drunk and so loaded, we didn't even care. And we had mulberry trees in Indiana, and so the chickens ate the mulberries. They came in the house. They're shitting purple all over the house, and we're shooting dope and drinking, and I guess I thought I'd arrived. It was crazy. So I finally left teaching and went back home to Kendyville, Indiana, where my mother and father were still living. And I was drunk all the time. And my father tried to rape me twice when I was there. And the second time, I knocked him out of a chair and was screaming and kicking at him. And the next thing I know, I was being handcuffed. And there was a sheriff, and my mother had just committed me to a mental institution. And she was saying, "It's for your own good, honey." And away I went. And I went to a place called Oaklawn Psychiatric Center. It's out near South Bend, Mishawaka, barbed wire. So I went there, and I was there for like the next 9 months. I could tell stories about that place. It was wild. You should have seen us all at the roller skating rink. Oh my, we're all we're all crazy. And we're calling bingo, and I'm calling it real fast, and nobody can keep up, and corn's going everywhere. My friends, we won all the gum and the candy. So I got thrown in solitary confinement for my misbehavior. Bad. Finally, after about 9 months, they released me. They said I did not respond to treatment. So I went back to Bloomington, Indiana, because if you were going to be gay in the state of Indiana, it was the only place to live. So I went back to Bloomington. I got a job again teaching junior high school English for Sister Rose Clare in a Catholic grade school. Sister Rose Clare hated me. I was always doing photography classes and having the students outside just running around and it was fun. We had a lot of fun. The kids loved me, but Sister Rose Clare didn't. And it was kind of then I noticed about my drinking, because the teachers would pull up in the teacher's pool. I would get in the back seat with an open can of beer and a half pint of vodka. And nobody said or turned around and said, "Virginia, should you be drinking at this hour?" Because if you said anything to me, I just destroyed you with my mouth, I was living with all these drag queens, and I was doing more than just hanging up their clothes. I was just, doing drugs with them, and I talked like they did. And so I would have whoever said anything to me, they would be crying before we got to the next corner. So people just left me alone. So when that job was over, my last really good job I had was driving a municipal bus for the city of Bloomington. And they were Mercedes-Benz buses, so I said, yeah, why not? So I drove a bus for the city, and I had a big bag, and I had to run from downtown out to the mall. And I would pass out at night, just drunk, and wake up and go to work. And people at work, the other drivers called me the big wrinkle, because I just, whatever I passed out in, I still had on, and I went to work that way. And my clothes were all wrinkled and nasty looking. But I would always have enough sense to take another shirt. So when I got out to the mall, I'm like, I don't have a drink. I mean, I don't have a bottle. Like, I'm not going to make it, and I'm shaking. So I would go in the restroom in the mall, take off my Bloomington Transit shirt, and put on the other shirt, and go into Super X Drugs and get a big old bottle of Gordon's vodka. And the women in there would say, "Oh, you're not driving today, Virginia?" And I said, "No, this is my day off." And so I would take my vodka and I'd stop in the mall. They had an orange Slurpee or orange Julius, that's what it was called. Get a big old cup. I said, I'll just have ice today. So I would get the cup of ice and straw and go into the bathroom, get in my stall, fill that cup up with vodka, and take a few hits of that, and then I could breathe. And so I would take off that shirt, put the Bloomington Transit shirt back on, put the lid on that drink, and get back in my bus. And now I'm heaven. So I've got my drink up there. I had two. We had cassette players then. I had Olivia Newton-John, and I had the Brandenburg Concertos. And that music got louder and louder as the day went on. And people would get on my bus from Urban Renewal, and I didn't like them because they always wanted to talk to me, and I didn't want to talk, and so I would just break, and I'd throw people all over the bus. So they'd get away from me. They always wanted to sit behind me and talk. I'm like, go to the back, right? But what had happened was I had lost control of my bowels. Now I'm drinking a quart of vodka a day, so I have no control. So I'm on the bus, and then people would get on my bus and they go, "Ooh, what's that smell in here?" And I'd say, "It's John. It's in the back from Urban Renewal." John. Poor John, he got blamed for everything. And so when I would get off the bus, I would have to take my Bloomington Transit jacket tied around my waist and leave because it was bad. So I ended up going into the psych ward of the local hospital, Bloomington South, and I walked in with a blood alcohol count of 0.489. And I had a whole bunch of shots, like I don't know how many, couple hundred. Anyway, after a week, they released me, and I moved back in with all of those drag queens, but now the city didn't want me driving a bus anymore, so they gave me a job on the street departments. "Virginia, here's a bucket of yellow paint, you're gonna paint the curbs yellow." So I went, okay. $2.50 an hour, this is what I did. So if you're wondering what you're gonna do once you're sober, you might get lucky and get to paint curbs. So it was like, count from the corner, these four, you paint them. So that was easy enough, except that I had been tied up in the DTs for a week, and my ankles were so weak, and my hands so weak that my ankles would go out, and I would fall down, and the paint would spill, and I would just sit there and cry because I couldn't even do this. And so these two women came to my house. Actually, before they came to my house, my paint crew, I have to hurry up and get sober. My paint crew took we stopped for breakfast at a place called Gibbon Denzel's, and we get biscuits and gravy. That's what everybody eats in Indiana for breakfast. So biscuits and gravy, and I'm trying to eat. I can't. But I see in the back of the restaurant another woman whose name was Virginia, and she's motioning for me to come back. I go, "Hi, what's up?" And she said, "I heard you were in the hospital." And I said, "Yeah," and it was if God was there and tied a truce belt around me, and I said, "Virginia, I'm drinking again." And she said, "I know two women who live here in town. They met, I think, at Hazelden Treatment, and they moved here. They've divorced their husbands, and they live together. Would you talk to them? And I said yes, because they were like me. So that night when I was coming home after work, the phone was ringing, and I said hello, not cell phone, but a regular house phone. And this woman said, hi, my name's B. We've heard about you. Can we come over? And I said, sure. So B and Paula came to my house that night, and they said, we're from Alcoholics Anonymous, and we know how you feel. And I consider those the 5 most important words that anyone ever said to me. They knew how I felt. So they told me they hadn't had a drink one day at a time for over 2 years, and I thought, oh, wow. But they said there's a meeting Sunday night on campus at the Distinguished Alumni Room, and we'll come and get you. And I said, no, you won't. I'll get there on my own if I go. So that was a Monday night. I don't know if I drank from then till Sunday, but that Sunday was July 13th. 1974. I went to that meeting and I never took another drink. So if you want to know how to stay sober, you just don't take the first drink, no matter what. And those 2 women said to me, God will never give you anything so great that you'll have to drink. So far so good. And I've never ever went out again. So if you're new, you don't have to relapse. It's not mandatory for recovery. I mean, if you do, I hope you get back. But you can actually stay sober without ever taking a drink again. And I never took another drink from that day. And those 2 women, B and Paula, became my sponsors. I never knew you got to choose. They just said, we're going to be your sponsors. So that was fine. And I rode that bus. I drove that bus for a couple years, and I started going to meetings, and they were 60 miles away. So I drove from Bloomington up to Indianapolis 2 or 3 times a week because I needed a meeting. There was no meeting in that town. So I drove 60 miles up there, had the meeting, turned around, and drove back. And I did it, I guess, 3-4 times a week. And I didn't mind at all because I was willing to go to any lengths to stay sober. So ultimately, I moved up there and became a school teacher again. And that was fun. I mean, it was really fun. I taught in an all-black school in downtown Indianapolis, and then I taught a gifted class, an enrichment program. And all the kids that I've had have been really fun. I mean, I would teach school today if you could even make a decent living being a teacher, but it's probably the most underpaid profession in the country, in the world. I mean, I think other countries maybe pay more for teachers, but anyway, so what happened? So I got sober, 5 minutes, wow. So I got sober and I got very active in AA in Bloomington. And then I moved up to Indianapolis, and became a teacher, lived up there. When I was not quite 5 years sober, I saw in the back of the grapevine that there was a gay AA convention in San Francisco. And I said, ooh. So I said to my girlfriend of the time, we decided we would go. So we went, and I loved it out there. So I came back to Indianapolis. I put my house on the market. I told Mr. Malone, the principal, I'm leaving town. He said, Ms. Peacock, who's going to coach the girls' basketball team? And I said, I don't know, Mr. Malone, but I have to go. And I up and moved to San Francisco in 1979. I moved right into the Castro. I became very active in Alcoholics Anonymous and H&I. I went to the women's prison, the girls' school. I went to Vacaville for 15 years and to San Quentin for 10. So I loved being in H&I. That's my big thing. I'm one of those people. And when I was 5 years, when I was what? Let's see, 2003, I moved to Palm Springs. I had bought a house down here in 2000. I moved here in 2003, and I've been here ever since. I mean, I love it here. This will be my last stop. I'm not planning to go anywhere else. I like the weather here. I like the people, and it's cheap to live here. And, you know, I couldn't even go back to San Francisco if I wanted to. I don't have $2 million to buy a house, like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow. No. So it's nice here. I love it here, so this is it. So for all of you that are new, if you're planning to stay around here, there's a lot you can do. And if you want to have a job at the gratitude dinner, I can get you a job, and you can probably earn a ticket. So see me after me if you don't have $20. My sponsor lives in Palm Desert. Her name's Susie A. She's a product of the Pacific Group. She has a sponsor. She has sponsorship meetings at her house. I sponsor a lot of people, women and men, and we were meeting at my house once a month, but we're not doing that this year. Yeah, I don't want to. I said, you know, when I'm putting more time into something than you are, then it's not working. So sponsorship has to work for both the sponsor and the sponsee. And I was doing all the work, having everybody at my house, getting the coffee, cleaning up, tearing it down. So we're taking a break from that. So we'll see if anybody wants to change their behavior. So, I mean, my life is good. I am still a realtor. I have been for, 37 years now. I live with, I just got a new greyhound rescued from the track who came with the name Taco. I think that truck, they come from the Tijuana track in Mexico, the Caliente track in Tijuana. And so when the dogs start losing races, then they retire them, and they put them in a big field and wait for all these rescue groups in the United States to go down. They pick them up like a semi at a time, 75 dogs at a time, and they bring them up, and then they foster them out with a family that already has a greyhound. So that's how and the dogs all come, when they get them off the truck, they name them all a certain thing. Like one of my dogs, they were all Scottish names, so I didn't like her name, so I changed it to Priscilla. So, I mean, a dog will learn its new name in an hour. So, but this dog came, I think they were all Amigo, Taco, they were all like Mexican names, so I thought Taco was cute, so I kept the name. But I lost the other 2 greyhounds I had, one in January and one in February, and I mean, it just devastated me. I thought, it was like losing a pet. I'm with the pet every day for, 10, 11 years. I think I cried more over my dogs than I did my mother, because my mother was in Florida. I never saw her but maybe once or twice a year, but I had my dogs all the time. But when you get into these steps, then the 8th and 9th step are really, they're challenging, but they will be the biggest thing you can possibly do to clean up your life. And my mother was on my 4th step. She was 25 pages of my 4th step. I hated my mother. I hated her money, I hated her politics, I hated everything about her. I blamed her for my alcoholism and my dad's, because my dad died from alcoholism. And when I got done with my 4th step, my sponsor said, "Your mother loved you the only way she knew how. It's just not the way that you want. So she's going to go on your list, and you're going to be making amends to her." So for the next 20-some years, when I went to Florida, I wore nice clothes. I didn't wear the jeans with the ass out and the knees out and "have a nice day" stickers all over them. I wore a skirt, which I don't even wear now. But, I wore clothes that she would be proud of to take me anywhere, and that was like my amends to her. And I actually made a verbal amends for my not being a good daughter. But she died in 1995, I think, and I was down in Florida with her at the time, and it was really, I knew she wasn't going to get out of the hospital, but she said to me before she died, she said, "You've been a good daughter." in my mind, I was anything but a good daughter until I got sober. When I got sober, I acted right, which is what you learn to do in AA. If you work these steps, you'll learn to act right and do the right thing. I mean, I was the kind of kid that I wouldn't call for months on end. I still expected them to pay my bills and send me to college and do all this shit, but you know, no, I'm not coming home. It was like, no, no, mother, I'm going to New York for an abortion, and then I would hang the phone down. And then my mother would be calling every hospital in New York, thinking, you know, I was just being a brat. I was going to New York for an abortion. I was just wanting to get her. So for her to tell me that I was a good daughter, I can only thank Alcoholics Anonymous. Because of my own making, I wouldn't have done that. But I learned to hear that that's what you do here. You clean up your life, and you do the right thing. And I don't want to drink, so that's the whole reason, you know. I don't want to drink, but I don't feel bad. So life really is good, even though I'm crying. I'm thinking, get a sponsor, get into the steps. I mean, it's really fun, Alcoholics Anonymous. It really is. And the gratitude dinner will be a lot of fun. I didn't sell any tickets at the break, so hopefully you'll want to buy one at the end of the night. There's no tickets sold at the door, so you're going to want to go. It's a really fun event, about 750, 800 people. And you'll see all these people you had no idea were in Alcoholics Anonymous. They'll come down from Sky Valley and Yucca Valley, and they'll come all over to go to this. It'll be fun. You know, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I just love it. I would not even be alive if it weren't for AA, because I would have drunk myself to death. I got a call about 4 or 5 years ago from the guy named Bo, who had been the best man at my wedding with Junior. And I said, hi, and he said, hi, it's Bo. I go, Bo? He told me where he was, and he said, I just called you to let you know that Junior died, my ex-husband. And I said, when did he die? And Bo said, nobody knows for sure. He'd been dead a couple of weeks when the cleaning lady found him. And I thought, oh, that's how alcoholics die. We die alone, nobody around, nobody cares, nobody even missed you, and you didn't tell anybody anything. So it's always been a good reminder to me that I could have all that if I wanted to take a drink again, but I don't. I love AA. I love the service work. I love everything about it. So I hope that you will continue to go, those of you that are still going, and those of you that are new, that you will come and join this great group. I mean, it's just fun. No matter where you go in this country or in the world, you can find an AA meeting, and it's all the same. You may not even understand the language, but you'll know what they're talking about. If you're in France and they're smoking Gauloise and you can't even see in the room because the cigarette smoke's so thick, you'll hear them banging on the table and talking about colère, anger, and you know exactly what they're doing. So it's just a universal language. I think we're the best people in the whole world. So I love it, and thank you for my life, and that's enough out of me.
Let's take